Hi, Phyllis here from southernfrugal.com. This morning, I think we've got Bucky, or Mr. Bucky, talked into telling us another story, and I think I've heard part of this story, but not all of it. It's about his time, joining the Army, right? Yeah, when they joined the Army, him and his friends. So anyway, it ought to be pretty good. Now, I've agreed to make some really, it's not peanut brittle, it's going to be pecan brittle because I don't have any pecans, but I'm going to make some of that because I found a recipe on the internet where you can make it in the microwave, so that's what we're going to do this afternoon. I'm going to make some of that, and he's going to give us a good story, hopefully. Alright, so let me get the camera set up and we'll be right back. Okay, Mr. Bucky, you ready to tell your story?
Yep, I guess so.
All right. Can you put your magazine down? All right, he's going to tell us a story now about the Army. All right, you ready?
Right. Well, I think you wanted me to talk about, there were 6 of us that we were thinking about going in the Army. They had the 6 months plan back then. Well, I'm going to have to tell my age a little bit. It's 1956 when I graduated from high school. But we actually learned about this 6 months plan several months before our graduation. I was still 17 years old, and I think some of my buddies were still 17 too, so we had to actually get parents to sign for us to join the Army. Well, we were in the Army Reserve is what we were in. So the 6 of us, out of the 6, 4 of us decided to join the Reserve. 2 of my friends did not join. Now, the truth is that we've been buddies for a long time. We went through high school together, went through grade school together, some of us. And we had a place that we always came and kind of gathered around. Smith's Service Station is what it was.
Now, what can you say the first names of the guys?
Yeah, it was.
Because some of them might be watching this.
Right.
Just
yeah.
tell us the first names.
Yeah, well, it was Mac and Pete, and they decided not to go in. But
What was the name?
Mac and Pete.
Mac and Pete.
Right. Then there was Jimmy and Johnny and John and me. So there were actually 6 of us. We had sort of a pact that we were going to join the Army. Well, 2 of them decided to back out. So there were just 4 of us that decided to go on in the Army. And of those 4, Jimmy wanted to go into the medical corps. So his assignment was going to be different from ours. And when we graduated, we went ahead and joined the reserve in like March of 1956.
Now, you're talking about when you graduated from high school?
Right. Well, when we graduated from high school, which was in 1956, the 4 of us went ahead and enlisted. Now, Major Kirk, he was our reserve commander. We were in the reserve, we were attending meetings, and Major Kirk was our commander. And we went on, we were supposed to go in June. And so we went in. We went in June. Fort Jackson is where 3 of us went. And Jimmy, like I said, he went out to Texas in another type unit, medical unit, to get his basic training. But this was for basic training. We knew we were going to have 8 weeks of basic training. Actually, I was in the infantry, so I had 16 weeks of basic training staring me in the face. But I didn't think it would be nearly what we ran into in the first couple of weeks that we were in the Army. That way, we went to what they call the IRP, the initial receiving point, and they processed us. We had not even been in a company yet. We had not been assigned. But while we were in that initial receiving point, we got, oh my goodness, we really got a big dose of it. Wherever we went, we heard all kinds of, the cuss words that I can't even remember what they were, but I had no idea what they were. Here we were, innocent boys, we thought we were going to go in and have a good time. And instead of that, we were cussed for everything we could have possibly ever think of.
Did they say cuss words you'd never heard of
Oh,
before?
never heard of, never would even have used, and they cussed us out, and we hadn't done anything. So after a few days of this, we said we want to get out of this man's army. So
Well, wait a minute. Now you forgot to tell the part about them getting your name wrong.
no, well that's let me just
Oh,
tell
that
it
was
from the
after
beginning.
this.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
We decided, well, we wanted to get out of this thing. I mean, it was just too much. So the three of us decided that, you know, they kind of decided, well, we're going to let you do the talking, and they assigned me to do the talking.
Who did? Yeah.
Oh, the other two,
The other guys.
Johnny and John, yeah,
Yeah.
and they, you know,
You were appointed chairman.
I was sort of the chairman of the rebellion. And so I remember very well, we got into a phone booth at the end of the company street down there.
All three of you?
All three, well, no, I'm talking about, there was a payphone down there. So we went down to the end of the street. In fact, our commander didn't even know we were going, our sergeant. But we got down there, and I made the
So
call.
now y'all were in the barracks now. I mean,
Well,
you were already in,
We weren't in the company that they had assigned us to.
but you were in barracks. 'cause
We
you said
we were in barracks. We were getting a taste of barracks life.
Yeah, okay.
we were. And so, anyway, I made the call. I called Major Kirk. I got him on the phone, and he had also been my 8th grade teacher. In fact, our 8th grade teacher. I think all of us went to Han. And so he had been our social studies
That was
teacher.
Han
Han
Middle
Junior
School?
High.
Oh, okay.
Han Junior High
They called
School.
it junior high back then?
Yeah, back then they did.
Yeah, okay.
So, at any rate, I called him. I've forgotten now. It was about 9 o'clock at night when we got down there. And I called him and got him on the phone, and you know, he of course knew who I was, and said, "Well, you know," said he called me Ernie. Said Ernie said, "I just think this thing's gonna get better for y'all." Said, "Oh, Major Kirk."
All right, wait a minute. I got to adjust the camera. Hold on a minute.
Okay.
Okay, sorry, the camera messed up a little bit. We're back. All right, so you had called, what was his name? Major
Kirk.
Major Kirk.
Major
All right,
Roger Kirk.
all right. Go ahead.
Okay, so we wanted to get out of the thing. We just we
You
made
wanted
a
to get out of
mistake.
what?
We wanted to get out of this basic training thing.
You wanted to get out of the whole army?
Well, out of the whole thing.
Okay.
We just thought this thing was ridiculous.
And this had been how
of
long
course,
now?
we had.
About
it hadn't been but about a week or two.
A week
I
or
mean,
two.
it was just a few days, but we knew if this was the way it was going to be, it was going to be terrible. So we had enlisted, of course. We'd signed papers and all
Yeah.
that. But at any rate,
So you were good and in.
oh, we just wanted to get out of this man's army. I mean, it was just bad. You know, we couldn't stand it. Little young ones like we are, and so we were. So at any rate, I called him, got him on the phone, said, "Major Kirk, you got to do something to get us out." And he said, "Well, what are you talking about?" So we're down here in this. We've only been in here a week or so, but they just abusing us something terrible, Major Kirk. Yeah, they just abusing us something terrible. We can't handle this. You're gonna have to get us out of this thing. We just don't. We didn't know what we were getting into or something. It was bad. Well, Major Kirk said, "Now, Ernie, you and Johnny and John just listen to me. This thing's gonna get a lot better when they assign you to your company. You haven't been assigned yet. You're just going through processing." And I said, "Well, Major Kirk, we can't stand it." And I said, "Well, now you just wait. It's gonna get better." Well, he talked us into, the waiting game. He talked us into waiting till we got to our company, and it would be a lot better. Well, it didn't get any better. But
Did it get worse?
it got worse, really. Not so much the profanity, but the training did. At any rate, so that's the way we started off. So it hadn't been too long before we were issued equipment, and we were issued all kinds of different kinds of equipment.
Is that like
And-
guns and
Yeah,
clothes?
well, a
and-
rifle.
Yeah.
We issued a rifle, and so now this was just a temporary rifle. We had to get our real rifle when we got back to our company, but we issued a rifle just to sort of get a handle on it, and but mainly it was just clothes and field jacket. It was I don't know why we thought we needed a field jacket in June. It was hot as blazes in Fort Jackson, but at any rate, we
Now
were
that's Fort Jackson,
Fort Jackson,
South
Carolina, right
yeah.
there in Columbia.
Yeah.
At any rate, we were going to get the field jacket. Well, they marched us here and there and everywhere and made us wait. Hurry up and wait. That was always the slogan for the Army. But we got to wherever we were going, and so there was a corporal there, and he was calling out our names and telling us to go get our field jacket. And he had called out names, well, mine was Stokes, and it was on down a ways. So finally he gets to me, and he calls out, and instead of calling out Stokes, he calls out Stokesernist. Well,
Wait a minute, what was that?
Stokesernist.
Stokesernist.
Well, my name, is Ernest. My real name is Ernest Stokes. So they call that Stokesernist. And of course, I didn't respond. And so he said, Stokesernist. And I said, I looked around,
Were you the last one?
I was sort of, no, not now. They hadn't gone down through the alphabet yet,
Oh,
so
okay.
there was still a few people there. But anyway, he goes on and skips me because I didn't respond, and he goes on down and calls the others, whoever was left, and here I am, left standing. I'm the only one there, and here's this corporal. He looks at me and he says, "Well, what's your name?" I said, "My name is Stokes." He said, "Well, I've got a Stokesernist here, but I don't have a Stokes." I said, "Sir," I said, let me, can I see that?" And so I finally convinced him into letting me look at the thing. And I saw what had happened. My name, they had left out the space there. It was, instead of Stokes, Ernest, it was just Stokes, and it's all written together. And I was telling him about it. And he was a little bit hard to convince. But at any rate, he finally agreed that I was Stokesernist, and I was Stokes, and let me go in.
Well, he wasn't real bright, was he?
No, it was terrible. It was terrible. Anyway, we finally got assigned to a company. Now that was something too. Back then, unlike now, where you get you up at 6 o'clock in the morning and you go to bed at 10 o'clock at night. Back then, when we were going through basic training, it was if you got to bed by 3 o'clock, you were lucky. After you cleaned
3
your
in the
equipment.
morning?
Yeah, and you got up about 5.
Well, why were you staying up so late?
If they sent you on any kind of a march or anything, you had equipment you had to clean. So it was a lot of mornings. It was 1 o'clock before we got, a lot of evenings. 1 o'clock before we got, and 3 o'clock if we'd gone on a big march or something. We were all dirty. We'd come in, then we had to shine our boots. We had to make sure that our equipment was all clean so that they could come and inspect it. And it was just one thing after another. We just didn't get much sleep back then. We just didn't get much sleep at all. And they were marching us everywhere. We learned, by the way, that to march in our sleep.
To march in your sleep?
I never knew I could do that. But I would actually be sleeping as I marched. Now let me tell you one little funny thing that happened, and this was I was in the TO&E phase. I was a squad leader of a recoilless rifles squad, and my gunner's name was Young, and they had a field exercise, and they called it the Company in Assault, and it was a night assault. We had to actually cross a river. Well, like I said, everybody was always sleeping. Anytime they gave us a break, we went to sleep. And this particular time, though, Young was in the stands there, standing. He was sitting a couple of doors down from me. I mean, couple of people down from me. And so the Lieutenant Garland was his name, as I remember. Real jackass.
Uh-oh, I don't think you can say that on my video.
Well, at any rate,
He wasn't a pleasant person.
he wasn't. And so he was lecturing to us, though. And he was telling us, what was going to happen. And he began asking questions. And he was asking questions always of the ones who were asleep. So he would ask the question, and then somebody would wake him up, up the recruit. Somebody would wake us up, and then we wouldn't know what he asked. So in this case, he asked Young, he said, "Now what would you do, Private Young, when you got to the river?" "Well, it's at night now. It's supposed to be a night attack." And Private Young, finally he woke up, and Young woke up and said, "Well, I don't know." He said, "Well, would you get some motorboats and cause you, be able to cross the river?" And now this was at night. It's supposed to be an attack, when the enemy didn't know we were coming. And so Young said, "Yeah, that would be good to get us across the river." He said, "Well, all right. Would you send your weapons back for ordnance to get them checked?" Now, your weapon is going. You don't have time to send your weapon back to ordnance. But at any rate, that's what he said. You send your weapon back to ordnance to get checked. Yeah. So he had Private Young crossing the river in motorboats with the enemy on the other side with no rifle. And so that was the way it goes. That's the way that it went the whole time. I never will forget one other time when we had some kind of a exercise, and we were running up. It was going to be hand-to-hand combat. So we had run up to a place where we were just kind of resting a minute before we engaged the enemy. But rather than jump down there right quick like you would in wartime, we took our time because we didn't want to get our arms hurt and our legs hurt. So we just kind of made a little place for us to get down, and we finally just lay down there. Got down and got ready, but it took us forever to get in position. So the sergeant came through and he said, "Now let me show y'all how you did it." And he showed us exactly what we went through to do it. Just kind of got down real easy.
Were you getting in a like a dugout hole? Where were you
No,
getting?
no, it was in a little trench like.
Oh, okay.
But what we were trying to do is get in position to engage the enemy. But what we were doing is we were taking so long getting down that the enemy already knew where we were. So all of these kinds of things we had to do. But now I think I've told you about going to breakfast.
Yeah.
Well, let me just tell you that we're still in basic training now. We go down for breakfast. And first of all, you got to do about 10 push-ups or 10 pull-ups before you can even get in the mess hall. You get in the mess hall, and if you were lucky, you had about 3 minutes to eat. I mean, if you were lucky. Now, if you got in there and you kind of piddled around with your food, and the mess sergeant saw that you were, then that was going to be Katie bar the door too. But if you were lucky, you went ahead and ate as fast as you could and got on out of there, because he was going to get you out one way or the other. So if you were able to do it, fine. If you didn't eat any of your food, that's fine with him too.
Well,
all right, get on out of here.
What was the food like? Was the food good?
Well, the bacon was half cooked, and the eggs, I don't know, they were kind of rubbery like, but we ate it because we were hungry.
What'd y'all have to drink?
Coffee. We had black coffee, no sugar, no cream. Same way that we did in the
In other words, you didn't have your international creamer to put in your coffee
no,
then?
no. International Delight, yeah.
No.
But anyway, that's the way it went. That was the way it went in the Army. We lived through it, and whenever it was time for us to get out of basic training, got one more little one to tell. Whenever it was time for us to get out of basic training, everybody had been issued a blanket. Well, somehow one of those blankets got gone. So every morning, about a week or so before we got out, every morning a blanket would be gone off somebody else's bunk. It was just the craziest thing in the world. It got off my bunk one time, so I had to steal the blanket off somebody else's bunk to put on mine, because whoever wound up minus a blanket was going to have to pay the cost of the blanket. So I don't know how the blanket got stolen, but that's how it went. Well, we finally got on out, and we served our time in the ready reserve and in the standby reserve. And they gave us it was pretty rough. And it was right after Korea. So they thought really maybe Korea was going to be, the North Koreans were going to attack again.
Yeah, it was
you know.
going to heat up again.
That
over
we were
there,
going to have
yeah.
to go back over there. And by the time that I did get out, I was in North Carolina, and I had been in the Ready Reserve, but I'd been in the standby a while. So I was assigned to another unit in North Carolina. And about that time, the Vietnam cracked up. Well, I thought I was going to have to go anyway, so I went on down to Charlotte. I was living in Winston-Salem at the time. I went on down to Charlotte and passed all the tests for OCS, and I was ready to go. I was gung-ho too. I mean, by the time that I had finished at the reserve part, or was about to finish, I was a field first in an infantry company. So I was really gung-ho. And so I went down and passed all the tests and to go to OCS. And about that time we had
Now OCS is officers?
Officer Cadet School.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So I would have gone in as a second lieutenant in Vietnam, and thank the Lord the bombing kind of cranked up that summer. I had about 4 months before my due date report, and I had about 4 months, and the bombing kind of cranked up, and I kind of chickened out. I decided not to do it. And then my reserve time ended, so I was able to get out. But the Army was quite an experience. It was something else, and we had a good time. But
well, you went in boys and came out men. I'm
that's
sure.
exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly
So
right.
that's when you got all your muscles too, right?
Well,
and all the push-ups.
probably so. But there were all kinds of things we had to do, like crawl an infiltration course. I remember breaking my glasses doing that, and but we had a good time. It was good. It made men out of us. That's
It was
exactly
like a
right.
male bonding time, right?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Kind of like what Stephen and Ernie experienced at the Citadel.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's exactly right. But at any rate, I think I'm really, as I look back on that time, those were good. A good time. That was a good time. You know, these fellows and we had been friends forever.
Y'all still friends now?
Well, we still friends now. I tell you one other thing though. Back then, back in the 1950s, you could get what we used to do. The thing that we really enjoyed the most was going to a restaurant named Burnside's.
You talking about you and the guys?
Yeah, we would go to Burnside's and we would get a club steak for 99 cents, or get an open-faced roast beef sandwich.
How much were they?
Well, I think it was about 89 cents.
Oh my
At any
goodness!
rate, I mean, we went there often.
How much were Coca-Colas back then?
10 cents.
10
cents.
Wow.
Now I remember when they were only 5 cents or 6 cents in South Carolina.
Gracious.
But they were 10 cents back then. But of course, you could go on a date for $2. You know, you could get you some gas for 50 cents, and $1 maybe to get in the drive-in movie with you and your date, and then you could get some popcorn and drink for 50 cents.
Wow.
So those were the days. But that I don't know what in the world we're thinking back now from at that time. There's just a difference in daylight and dark.
Yeah. There's a lot of innocence back then.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen. Thanks for the stories, Mr. Bucky. And
Okay.
we're gonna be now. Here's the rule on the pecan brittle. I'm gonna make it, but if it doesn't turn out, because you know I'm not very good at making the peanut brittle, right?
Oh, yeah.
Wait a minute. You should tell this story.
Oh,
All
boy.
right. All right, and don't tell it so it's so embarrassing to me, okay?
Okay, well, I wouldn't embarrass you with anything. But I do remember you making some peanut brittle. And I remember you pouring it out on the dinette table. And it had a formica top on it, didn't it?
Yeah, that sort of plastic-like
Right.
stuff.
And somehow that stuff dried up a little quicker than you thought or something.
Well, in my defense, let me say that I was making a double batch, and I didn't have a pan big enough, so I thought the table would work. It just didn't.
But I do remember that you, once it came out and it cooled, that you took a hammer out there to it, and then that didn't work either, did it?
Well, no, I had to actually get the chisel out of the garage and chisel it up off the table. But once I got some of it up, it was pretty good.
It was good peanut
Yeah,
brittle.
but then I also had to take a really hot, wet towel and put it on the table to get it to dissolve so it would come up.
Yeah.
Of course, we no longer have that table, but it really didn't damage the table, really.
But it was good peanut brittle. It
Yeah.
turned out to be good peanut brittle now.
It did. But anyway, we're going to do this with pecans today because I don't have any peanuts and I like pecans better anyway.
Well,
And I'm going to try that one. I saw that guy do the thing in the microwave, and I'm going to videotape it. Now, if it doesn't turn out, I ain't going to do it anymore. But I'm going to give it one try. I'm going to give it one try.
I'm sure it's going to turn out.
All right. So that's the deal.
Okay.
Stories for pecan brittle. Right?
Okay.
All right.
All right.
All right. We'll see y'all next time.
All right.